The universe. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Hey, everybody, it is Wednesday, September the 30th. I am Emerson Collins.
And I'm Del Shores.
And you're listening to
The Del and Emerson Show. Straight talk.
Real gay! I almost forgot who I was.
I know. I was going to say, I know my name. I even know my name. How are you, Emerson Collins?
I'm fine. How are you, Del Shores?
I'm doing so well.
How was your weekend? You had an adventure.
Oh, my God. I had a great weekend. Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you, Different Roads Home and Dale Pierce, for such an amazing weekend. We had a little glitch that happened. Our good friend Caroline Ray was scheduled to perform with Leslie Jordan and myself, and she had a family emergency, and so we had to quickly scramble, and we secretly, without, you know how hard this was for me.
I do.
Because you were there. We were booking the ticket.
You're like a sieve.
I'm that kid who opened those Christmas presents way before Christmas, and I could not post. I could not even take a picture on the airplane. And I'm sitting right next to Ann Walker the whole time. So we kept it a secret until Dale Pierce had this. It was this magical moment where he literally said, I wish I could have replaced Caroline Ray. Nobody can replace her, but I wish I could have just gotten a real woman with tits to come here instead of just Leslie, myself, and Dale. And all of a sudden you hear backstage, fuck, and Ann Walker walks out in full lavanda garb on the phone having a conversation with Brother Boy, who is backstage. And it was about a minute of complete and utter applause.
Yes, Ann Walker.
We love Ann Walker. She did it for nothing. She said she literally did Dina's web series in Chicago the day before, flew back, got up, and flew with me the next morning.
And we do, again, want to say a huge thank you, because this is the showcase that was a part of our Indiegogo campaign that Dale so generously contributed to our campaign, and then donated this, the ticket sales of this, to Different Roads. And so it was a huge, successful weekend financially for them.
They did. They said it was their biggest success ever for an event, and we were able to really just be irreverent and auction off some great items. And you know how I am.
Yes.
And, if it doesn't get high enough, I promise a blowjob or two. And
how many did you give?
I didn't have to deliver. I didn't. Everybody, people were saying, "We'll give more if you don't give us a blowjob."
Oh, I get that. Although it is my hope and prayer.
What you just
somewhere...
say? You say I get that. What an asshole.
Well, it is my great hope and prayer that one day someone holds you to that, because you have said it so many times for so many things, and people are like, "That's funny." Someday I hope someone donates an obscene amount of money and just for the kick of it says, "You have to do it. You have to do it."
I could really only be a prostitute for the blind and the elderly at this point of my life.
That is not true. We could Periscope it, live stream it on Facebook, and create a big old scandal.
Probably get the rest of the money for a very sordid wedding immediately if we just Periscoped like trash or something.
Well,
but anyway, how was your weekend?
It was fine. Not a lot crazy. Just a nice little weekend. We're back in the swing of the things for the People's Couch that premieres a week from yesterday. 6 days.
You filmed 2 already, right? No?
We can't talk about how we shoot the show or anything like that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
they're so confused by the rules.
And so next Tuesday at 10 p.m. on Bravo. I love that. Like, we've talked about this so many times. The first episode will be premiering. So I hope you guys will tune in and check it out and share your thoughts about the show on Twitter and Facebook. We're super excited to be back watching television to share our snarky nonsense with all of you.
Are they? Can we talk about any of the? Are there any new cast members, or is it all the same?
It's all the same cast.
I love it. I have some favorites, of course.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, they were fixing there for a few seasons. I mean, it was like they were bringing in other people, and like the old ladies weren't there at first, right?
Well, we had the very first 3 episodes, and then ever since then, it's been the same.
It has?
Yes. I promise. I show up every week.
You should know you're on the show. I'm just a fan. I'm just one of the fangirls. I do watch it every week. I love it.
But it's super fun, and we're really glad to be launching our season 3. So please watch. Please tell your friends to watch. And then tell us what you think.
Here's what I don't like about the show. I'm just going to tell you. Is because I'm such a reality junkie that y'all watch a lot of reality shows that are so obscure. And then I'm like, I want to see that naked show in the Amazon or whatever. And it causes me to have more DVR scheduling. And
It is true. We get a lot of people who say, "Oh no, I have to watch that show because you guys watched it, and I'm curious about it."
Well, it makes me think that the marketing is working for. I mean, I would, if I were a producer of a show, I would certainly want it to be watched on the people's couch because I feel like it helps.
It's
Even though
fun.
y'all are mean sometimes. So
Not snarky, I would say, rather than mean. I mean,
Well-
but there are some shows on television that are just awful,
there are.
and that should be
Julie
stated.
can be mean. I've seen her be a little mean, and I love her mean.
Well, I was gonna say, like, y'all are cut from a very similar cloth.
Yes.
All right, let's get into the news.
Yes, go.
In our equality update, a really interesting, we talked a lot about how people would be attempting to counteract the success of marriage equality at the city, county, and state level. And yesterday, anti-LGBT legislators in North Carolina attempted to attach an amendment to a bill that would have gotten rid of the equal rights ordinances in a number of municipalities around North Carolina. It would have overridden non-discrimination ordinances by forcing them to stay at the same level as the state. This is the kind of thing that we talked about needing to be very watchful for. Unfortunately, LGBT advocates and Democrats in North Carolina got to the phone banks and called a number of legislators that forced awareness of this yesterday afternoon, and so the final version of the bill passed without that amendment. But this is the kind of thing that we have to be vigilant for. They wanted to attach it to a bill that was about something else. It was a sex education bill to sort of swipe it through without anyone being realizing that it was happening. So good job to equality-minded advocates in North Carolina, but this is the vigilance we've been talking about.
And the media, because they did pick up on it. I read it a couple of times. So
Yeah, but it was like a late afternoon, and the vote happened last night. So it was like, this is quick turnaround time.
There's something I kind of like about it, though, that now they're having to sneak things. You know what I mean? It's like sneaking things through.
Yeah.
It's getting to be that where I feel like that's a positive step in the right direction, that they're sneaking.
Yes, this is true. And then in other news, the State Department has changed the terminology for discussing LGBT rights in the international stage. It will all be referred to as sexual rights when speaking about sexual and reproductive health rights, but that will include specifically LGBT rights. It's a shift in language to bring American diplomacy in line with the international community, but they wanted to assure everyone it would not keep them from continuing to address specifically LGBT protection. So it's a words and language things, and just helps international human rights advocates all be working with the same language when they bring things to the international community. And then, of course,
Miss Kim Davis back in the news. She just stayed. She's become more of a publicity whore than I feel I am. I mean, if I could just have that, a platform that big, I could sell out all of my shows everywhere.
I feel like it would be a tough race if we were voting.
But it was kind of fun because she came out as a Republican. She switched the day of our show in Charlotte, so I did read a letter to her from the stage, and I started with, Kim Davis, thank you for switching parties. Democrats are rejoicing nationwide. And she had made a statement I think it was on Good Morning America, where she said that she had many gay friends and that they just had to agree to disagree. And I said from the stage, also in Charlotte, I said, you are a big fat liar. You don't have any gay friends because no gay friend would want you to go out of the house looking that bad. Now, she has a gay friend that has come forward, or a former gay friend, I should say.
Yes.
His name is Dallas Black of Moorhead, Kentucky, and he reached out to the Daily Beast after the search for the Kim Davis gay friend began. It's almost like a reality show.
Yes.
Like let's find Kim Davis's gay friend. But he's known her his whole life. Her first husband, one of four, is a distant cousin, but he said he and Davis became close after she helped him with paperwork after his mother died. While he said Davis wasn't someone he would go to lunch with, she would give him advice. And Black said that although he and Davis spoke about the controversy when it first started, he said, I really don't know who Kim is at the moment. I really want to believe that the kind, sweet person who was there when my mom passed away is still there. I was friends with Kim in the past, but I don't know who this woman I've been seeing is I somewhat feel like she is taking this to an extreme because she didn't become a Christian until 4 years ago. Because, as we know, all those sins, all those husbands, as she said, slate wipe clean. Wipe clean.
I do love, that it was finally like, oh, I have a gay friend. And he was like,
hold on.
I'm her gay friend. I know
just
her.
It feels like they just pushed him. He's just like, no, I don't want to go public with this.
Well,
please.
he's like, I don't want to come out of the Kim Davis closet.
There he is. You got a picture of her. One
Poor
gay friend.
Dallas.
He did say here. He described Moorhead though, his city. He said this is kind of like a sanctuary for people who came to Moorhead State University. They live here now. They've made it their home because it's so progressive. And now it's like, what is this place we live in? This is not the home we know. We don't feel safe now. That's ultimately what she did. She made us feel like our home was invaded by strangers, and she made us strangers to it. Very powerful quote.
Well, there it is. Well, and also, the Pope was in town, and before we got to the part of the story that, of course, was late breaking, people were, excited. There are LGBT Catholics that felt like there were positive results. There was a White House reception that included thousands of people, including Gene Robinson, the first openly gay bishop in the Episcopal Church, and Mateo Williamson, a trans Catholic activist. Everyone behaved. The Pope spoke in Congress, and liberals were pleased with him championing immigration and climate change and income inequality, and of course some comments about defending traditional family values, but he didn't actually specifically address same-sex marriage. And then on his plane home, a reporter asked the Pope about Kim Davis, without using her name, asked if he supported individuals, including government officials, who refused to abide by some laws, such as issuing marriage licenses to gay couples. The Pope's responded saying, conscientious objection must enter into every judicial structure because it is a right. I can't have in mind all cases that can exist about conscientious objection, but yes, I can say that conscientious objection is a right that is part of every human right, and if a person does not allow others to be a conscientious objector, he denies a right. So that was his after the fact response, non-specific to Kim Davis. Before last night, it was revealed.
Yes, Kim made a comment, and she actually did meet the Pope. Her attorney announced it last night. She's got a team now, Emerson. She's got a big old team around her.
Well, that's that same attorney that's been with her at every, that's been writing all of
she
her
will
everything.
soon have a manager and a book deal, I'm sure, though. And he met with her last Thursday at the Vatican Embassy in D.C. Staver said, her attorney said, that Pope Francis spoke to Davis in English and asked her to pray for him. He said Davis, in return, asked the Pope to pray for her. The Pope told her to stay strong, according to her lawyer.
And, well, once again, of course, Del, in his ongoing supporting actress role on the Del and Emerson Show, will play the role of Kim Davis and her comments.
I would really like to get the part in the Lifetime movie. This is part 4, I believe, of my audition for Kim Davis. Hang on. Let me just get into character here. Let me, channel some hatred.
Oh, my God, get on with it.
It was really very humbling to even think that he would want to meet me or know me. I put my hand out, and he reached, and he grabbed it, and I hugged him. And he hugged me, and he said, thank you for your courage. He told me before he left, he said, stay strong. And that was great encouragement. Just knowing the Pope is on track with what we're doing and agreeing kind of validates everything.
And therein lies the entire problem with this issue, because it does give the perception that he validates every aspect of what she has been doing by such a meeting. And I think several things. One, I think it is devious. I think it was intentional. I think this meeting, for there to be a private meeting requires all sorts of approvals all around. And for them all to agree to wait until he left to announce that it happened, kept there from being any protest related to this extremely controversial individual in our country at any of his final events. So the Pope basically got to have his cake and eat it too.
He pissed me fucking off at the Pope. I mean, I wasn't on the Pope train like everybody else. I wasn't quite on that Pope train.
Well, the Pope Mobile doesn't hold that many people, so.
But I have a lot of gay people. Oh, the Pope. Oh, he's making so, and then all of a sudden he does something like this. I say, fuck the Pope. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Catholics out there. Fuck the Pope.
Well, it is it's certainly challenging for LGBT Catholics who felt like this Pope was making strides, if not to support the LGBT community, to at least take the focus off of continuously bashing and focusing on denying rights to the LGBT community, particularly in our nation. It's sort of, they've been hoping, I think, for the approach of, if you're not going to say something nice, just don't say anything, please. And his statements have seemed to go towards, let's focus more on the poor and income inequality. And
Well, I agree with him on that.
The original charity basis of what the church can do in a positive way, and that.
But this negates it, don't you think? I mean, this
I
just
do.
negates it. It's just like, slate wipe clean.
Yes. Well, and there are some who have raised the idea that it's that his focus is on the right of every individual to be a conscientious objector. That those comments on the airplane were in reference to knowing that it would eventually come out that this meeting happened, and I think it's a way to appease some of the conservatives in the Catholic Church who have been really angry at his moderate language in some instances. Yes. But I think it sort of goes to, like, it's a struggle for Catholics to deal with. I think looking at it from the outside, it's hard to have a lot of sympathy for. It's not new what the dogma stands for.
Well, and also Kim Davis, going back to her, I think she just continues to show us what a hypocrite she is, because I don't know any person that is that evangelical and that far away from, Catholicism, then we have Episcopal and Lutheran or whatever, that would even, subscribe to Catholicism on any level.
That is very true.
I mean, I always say, my mama, Southern Baptist preacher's wife, she would always say, when she describes someone, she'd go, she's Catholic. Like they were just, and would then go on, they worship idols, and that's, idolatry.
That has long been the evangelical
pray to Mary and all that
Catholicism.
Shit. So that she's a fucking hypocrite.
But I don't even think it's her. I think it's back to Matt Staver and these liberty. But she's not bright. I'm sure this was a thrilling moment for her, and people are just carting her around the country as this like symbol. I'm ready to be done talking about her. Can she please not do anything else interesting this week? I know that you enjoy the performance opportunity, but like the amount of air oxygen that this woman has sucked
against
out of the
Kathy
room.
Bates?
I think Mama June Shannon from Honey Boo Boo has a better shot than you do still. All right, let's get to the gay news.
All right.
Super exciting news this past week. I don't know how many of you watch Shondaland Thursdays. Thank Shonda, it's Thursday. But How to Get Away with Murder, that Viola Davis won the Emmy for, that we talked about last week, has introduced an issue and the issue of HIV into primetime television in a way that it has never been done before. The character, for those of you who don't watch, one of Viola Davis's law student intern people that don't do anything but follow her around, I don't know what other classes they go to, is openly gay, and he has a new boyfriend of sorts. That was in the season finale. It was revealed that the boyfriend is HIV positive, and in the season premiere that happened last week, they took a very exciting and new and relevant approach to dealing with that. They didn't have a conversation about like, I don't know if I can be with you. Like, I don't understand. And like, is it safe for us to have sex? They dove immediately into the conversation from the perspective of Connor, the one who is negative, has started PrEP. In order for them to be in a sero-discordant relationship and continue to have sex, they immediately addressed that he only had to wait 13 more days of being on the PrEP for them to be able to have sex. There wasn't any of the angst of like lack of understanding of how HIV is transmitted and like this giant trauma of, can I be in a relationship with an HIV positive person? It went immediately to, I want this relationship, so what do we need to do to be healthy and protected together in order to continue this relationship? So that PrEP and that sort of HIV relationship where one is positive and negative, it was done on Looking, but it's never been done in prime time. It's an incredibly exciting advancement.
It was, and I only saw the clip. I don't watch the show, and it made me want to watch the show. It was so well done. The actors are amazing, and it was hot in a loving way, and it was real. I mean, can you help a buddy out?
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
because he was so horny. It was great, and he was like, no, you have to wait 13 more days. But that elevator kiss was very, very sweet and hot.
So it was very stigma reducing. It was a very positive and modern and honest approach to matter-of-factly dealing with HIV in a relationship that many people in the LGBT community do. But it's hugely innovative on television. So
and
huge
great
applause
writing.
to
really
Pete,
good writing.
Nowak. And also, sorry, this is a spoiler, but it was revealed that Viola Davis's character is bisexual. So Pete has just taken us all down the LGBT rodeo.
Yes. Okay.
All
right.
In related HIV news.
Yeah, we've got Danny Pintauro had came out as HIV positive to Oprah. She had a Where Are They Now? And Who's the Boss star, Danny Pintauro, revealed that he has been HIV positive for 12 years. He was forced to come out by the National Enquirer in 1997 and described ending a relationship, and he began to use crystal meth, like so many young people do in our community, for sexual exploration. He said, I feel like in the gay community, we've been spending so much energy trying to become socially acceptable and so much energy trying to make marriage happen, which I think are 100% important. And in doing that, we have forgotten about taking care of each other a little bit. Back when the AIDS crisis was happening, back when we weren't really socially acceptable, we still took care of each other because we had only each other. We didn't have all of our other friends and coworkers or any of that to turn to. Now that we've gotten to that place, we need to look within again. We need to take a step back, and we need to say, okay, here's what we are, and here's what we need to do to get our community back to that place of taking care of each other. And it seems like that Judith and Tony already knew about this. It was news to Alyssa Milano, and she cried talking about it on The Talk.
Yes.
And it said he was very brave.
And it was, and tying these two stories together, it was really interesting because when you think about it, as we struggle to continue to advance the number of out LGBT entertainers and focus on raising awareness of trans actors and trans entertainers and talking about bisexual visibility last week. HIV visibility is something that's really important as well, and lacking to an even greater extreme degree, because it's sort of like people in our community have to come out first about sexuality or gender identity and then come out again as HIV positive at some point, and there aren't nearly as many examples of people openly and outly talking about that. You have Jack McEnroth and from Project Runway, but it's only a handful of people, and so Danny stepping forward is sort of huge in awareness and creating a cultural conversation around removing the stigma from people who have HIV.
And the episode of how to get away with murder. I mean, it's sort of like I have evolved in that way. I'm 57 years old. I've been very, very careful my entire life, and I always attribute that to the fact that I really like myself, but also because I have children. And but there was a long time where I had all these rules. I would not date anybody that was HIV positive. Not the case anymore. I've just really educated myself and learned to know what to do, what not to do, and how to protect myself and how to protect that other person. So
and it's a challenging conversation to have, certainly, because there's two conversations that end up happening at the same time, and I don't think we do well walking the line between the importance of truly continuing to educate new young people on the risks and of what HIV is and what living with HIV means, while at the same time removing the stigma and the judgment that is associated with people who come out and are openly HIV positive. That it is possible to do those two things together, but we don't often do them very well. That it either ends up sounding like judgment against people that are HIV positive, as though they're the only people that ever engaged in risky behavior,
right,
or lack of education allowed them to not understand exactly all of the risks associated with different kinds of behaviors, and particularly with people that contract it when they are young, and removing that judgment and the presumption against someone who is HIV positive, and still also having the conversation at the same time about what it means to engage in safer sex practices and to be educated about what things like PrEP can do, and that there are real risks involved with having HIV, so that we continue to educate our younger generation without stigmatizing people that are living with it. It's finding that balance, and people like Danny being willing to stand up and say.
So articulate. I loved what he had to say, that we need to get back to taking care of each other.
There was one reaction, and it relates to a theme that we're going to talk about again in a minute. I find this reaction, because I'm as snarky as anybody, but I watched a number of people comment on things and saying, well, he's just doing it for publicity because he hasn't been in the news in forever. And there's an element within our community that wants to leap to that tear everyone down every time about everything, like to always presume the negative motivation that is becoming exhausting for me personally. That like he was managing a restaurant in Las Vegas for a number of years. I'm not even sure where he lives now. But that to think with as few people as there are openly positive at a celebrity level in our culture, to jump to, oh, he just wants magazine covers or to be back in the news, like.
Well, I mean, the extreme of that was when Caitlyn became Caitlyn, and people literally said, "Oh, she's just doing that for publicity."
Yes,
that's really
massive and major surgeries for publicity.
That's a big one. I mean, I get so exhausted by the judgments as well. And we're going to get to some
and I'm
more
judgy.
I know.
Like, I'm a judgy person.
We are. I mean, by nature, we are. But it's like, come on, let's just start trying to see the good in people instead of always going right to the negative. I mean, we've got the Matt Damon story coming up, and we're going to talk about it some more.
Well, at least, like, even if you don't see the good, see the somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
But
Don't
huge
just throw
applause
everybody
to
out.
Danny Pintauro for being willing to share that story and to talk about an issue that really is important and to continue to draw awareness to it. So hats off to you, sir. Flashing on, Lance Sanderson, you may have heard about, was a gay student at the all-male Christian Brothers High School in Memphis, Tennessee, who was barred from bringing a male date to his prep school's homecoming dance. Citing school policy, administrators told him that while students may attend the dance by themselves with other CBHS students or with a girl from another school, boys from other schools may not attend for logistical reasons. Last year, he was told by one administrator the school doesn't discriminate and he could bring whoever he wanted, but that official is gone, and since then he says he's been met with harsh opposition from the school. This week, he was sent home from school and asked to stay home the remainder of the week because the school did not appreciate the unwanted publicity the story had generated and were receiving insults as a result.
Insults.
So now the first part of the story goes back to that thing of like, good for him, but also you know what school you're going to.
There you
for
go.
Me, it lands as another one of the stories. Fight the system, absolutely. But if you are at a Christian Brothers High School, know what you signed up for. I do still think that, but the ludicrousness of the school like sending him home because like the story got news and they're not like, how do you write that up? Like, how do you defend that? Like denying a kid his education because you're displeased with unfavorable publicity. That seems indefensible.
And it's interesting to me. I wonder if I don't know. I mean, in reading this story, the person who left, who supported him, I wonder if that had anything to do with him leaving, because was he speaking on behalf of the school when the school did not support that and embrace that? I don't know. There's a lot of questions here for me with this story, but I do, going back to what you said, I do consider him a very brave young man, and thank you for putting some, making us pay attention.
Yeah. But I do think the first part is, well, if you don't like it and you want to bring a date to a Christian Brothers High School, like maybe you need to go to a different high school. Like that story, that is still the way I feel in response to all of these stories. I applaud your actions, but if you attend a religious institution, you also do know what you're signing up for. And if they tell you the rules are the rules and you don't get to fight the rules, then great, also, but go somewhere else. Like, I don't think that falls into the category of discrimination if you knew before you got there.
I think I'm going to start going to city and just holding new proms for all of us who went with those girls we didn't, to go with, just
the
who
prom you should have had.
The prom you should have had. That's a good title, Emerson. Oh, we could charge some money and make money.
There are lots. There's LA here in LA. There's Last Chance Prom that does kind of thing like that, and there's alternative proms in lots of cities.
They kind of did this on Sex and the City. There was an episode where there was some. I vaguely remember. Okay,
all right, flashing on.
All right. Well, most of you know that Stonewall did not do well at the box office. It
did not do well. That is an understatement.
Yeah, a $17 million budget, which is just huge for a gay. I wish you put all my movies together, they're not 17 million. It only made $112,000 in 129 theaters, averaging 107 people per theater for the weekend. Reviewers just ripped it apart. First brick was thrown by the made-up white gay guy. The film has been trashed by many in the LGBT community since the trailer was realized for taking the focus away from the LGBT people of color, butch dykes, trans women, and drag queens. And Roland Emmerich, the director, has made a statement. He said, you have to understand one thing. I didn't make this movie only for gay people. I made it also for straight people. I kind of found out in the testing process that actually for straight people, Danny is a very easy in. Danny's very straight acting. This quote infuriates me. He gets mistreated because of that. Straight audiences can feel for him because, we're not capable he added, it's partly because of the personal element imbued in the film that has led to some of the protests surrounding his approach. Then he says, as a director, you have to put yourself in your movies, and I am white and gay. He felt compelled to shed a light on LGBT youth homelessness, but...
Okay, and part of the reason we waited so long to talk about this on the show is I didn't want to talk about all of the controversy surrounding this movie until I saw it, but I have to be honest, like I'm probably going to wait for the DVD at this point, so I feel like we should go ahead and talk about it, because there was that huge reaction when the trailer came out, demonstrating that a fictional white gay man would be the center of the story, that upset many in the LGBT community, because it made it seem, and what has turned out to be true, that the actual figures from the events were either not in the movie at all, or small marginalized characters in the storytelling. And I find it interesting. I find this quote revealing, because I was very much like, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. I can comprehend the conceit of needing to convince investors in a film that there is an access point for a wider audience beyond the LGBT community. I think it's gross. But I also think that there isn't. I think we can trust that audiences are smarter now. But I understand the fear of investors of needing a character that's a shiny, happy Abercrombie-looking guy to be an entry point. I mean, I think
then don't call it Stonewall. Make it a fictitious account or something. That's not the truth. I mean, that's not what happened.
Right. Well, it says a fictionalized version.
It does say
it's not a documentary. I mean, it is.
And as I mean, Milk is not, I'm sure, 100% accurate, but in that it held up the integrity of Harvey Milk.
Yes,
and
this
does
true.
not hold up the integrity of what really happened there. Do you know?
I haven't seen it.
Well, I mean, just the director describing it.
Well, the director described, yes. I'm in getting
His
to
defense.
into getting to the end of the point. I understand, because this is the part that I think a lot of activists in looking at art, I get as a filmmaker, he put his own money into this. Like, I think it's clearly terrible. Like, everyone everywhere hates it. All of the reviews are terrible. But in talking about it, he was passionate about LGBT homeless youth. So I can imagine his privilege is demonstrated by the fact that he felt like a beautiful white gay man would allow a greater ticket sales. But I think when he says, I didn't make it just for gay people, I think he doesn't realize from his particular gay pocket that he didn't make it for LGBT people at all. Right. He made a watered-down, cliche-ridden film that in whatever particular gay ivory tower he lives in is offensive across the board to all LGBT people. And it's great to want to appeal to the masses eventually, but if you don't appeal to the people that it's actually about in the first place, it sort of doesn't matter. Because Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and there are some conflicting accounts about the original events of Stonewall that people continue to argue about depending on which particular historian you pay attention to. But even making a movie about that particular issue, like what actually happened, would have been more compelling. But it's like you've got this straight acting is a horrifying word for any LGBT director or artist to be saying as a positive thing, because that's a word that sort of demonstrates this heteronormative like making the straight acting guy the best, the thing that we should all be aspiring to, and that demonstrates what probably maybe his personal preferences are. That alludes to that there was a problem from the very beginning in getting into this.
Well, it's just one quote after another that pisses you off. I mean, this quote, well, we have to understand, he said, this is all these kids, but what we need is a central character where we can have a famous star and he can hopefully win an Oscar or something like that.
Well, I think that's the business. That part I actually get. Like, I don't think it's right in his result, but that's honest. LGBT, when you look at films about minorities,
though. How many people have won Oscars who are not described as he's describing?
But how many hugely successful LGBT films were not about people who died or were murdered, or like, it is still a hard sell to a large budget film. I think that's still factual and accurate, that we do not make huge budget films with central LGBT characters that are not dying of something, being murdered for something, or a bless their heart character. I do think that's true. I do think when he talks about the business aspect of the budget of the film, being able to sell to either investors or to studios or for a wider release for a film, being able to say, we can put somebody super famous and super attractive here. I mean, that's the way all movies get put together for the people outside of the industry. It's like you need somebody hot and famous because then you can pre-sell the foreign territories. That statement is about the nature of the filmmaking. I think the straight acting, that those are all the problematic things, and then he made a movie full of cliches that everyone hates. Well, but isn't that true? I mean,
well, I don't know. There's so much I go back to Hilary Swank, who became a star because of Boys Don't Cry.
Right.
And all they did was tell a compelling story. Not the best technical looking movie ever. I mean, but do you need what he's saying you need?
But that's the thing, is they tried to make a big budget movie for a wide release.
It's not that big. I mean, 17 million's not a huge movie anymore.
I think if you compare that to like LGBT focused movies, like across
and I
want
to know if a $17 million movie. I mean, you're right. It is. I say for our kind of movies and the things that we do. I mean, we're right now raising $1 million to make a sequel.
But even your Boys Don't Cry example points to like, yeah, that's about like someone that's a horrifying victim ultimately. That's my point.
True.
Is that movies celebrating us are still a hard sell to studio executives. We're still not over that hump. Unless you have Julianne Moore and Annette Bening at the center of your movie.
Or Tom Hanks and Antonio Banderas. I see what you're saying.
But in that, if you're going to do it, you got to make the best movie ever. Like
right.
the greater offense here is not only did you attempt to water down the story to make it palatable to these theoretical straight people that would make the movie a massive success, you did it badly and full of cliches and rained on the parade and did not celebrate the people that were actually the brave figures at the time.
Well, and obviously the straights did not come either.
Well, that's the thing. It's our people work in all of the media. You need a good review.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, we could keep going off, but let's
bless his heart.
All right.
Really quickly, because this is ridiculous. Before we get to the other big story of the week, a straight 24-year-old guy revealed on Reddit that he is marrying a wealthy 51-year-old man. He's straight. He said, "I'm in it for the money," and he knows that. "I have no interest in a relationship with a woman, so I figured why not?" And then he proceeded to answer questions, and this is where it gets kind of wonky for me. People asked a number of questions, so he said yes, they do have sex. He's still allowed to hook up with women, but not bring them home. He kind of fakes the romantic relationship for the 51-year-old man, but the older man knows that he's faking it. Usually, the straight boy is the bottom. He would be the sole inheritor of $11 million. He does swallow. He's fine if his partner lives 40 years because he doesn't have to work now and he can afford to buy anything he wants. Do you feel like this is horrible or like, well, everybody knows what they're getting? Because I can't decide, honestly.
Well, here's what I think is horrible about it. Why did you even have to come out with this? Why don't you just shut up and get your money and do your life? I don't know why it has to be on. I don't know.
Well, people share their lives. I mean, I feel like it's it's like putting out Instagram photos of his wedding coming up soon.
They don't. Do they verify these stories?
No, what do you mean?
I mean, well, how do we know this is a true story? How do we
don't.
We don't. I mean, people can just. This could be somebody's fabrication.
Well, yes, that's the nature of the internet.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying I almost don't have an opinion about this because it's just so weird.
Well, I can't decide if it's like, yay, we're all getting what we want, or if I want to like hold an intervention for the 51-year-old man and say like, you deserve more. I mean, I don't want to tell him you can't live your life that way, but like, there's part of me that wants to be like, if your thing is younger guys, find like from the younger guys that are into older guys. That's definitely prevalent. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. I'm like, don't settle for the straight boy who's like giving you a pretend relationship.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we could get them in here.
Well, since you don't think they're real people.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't tell. There's
I just love that we've been doing this for a year. I feel like this is the first time you've ever been like, do you think this story is true?
Well, we have had some that
turned out to not be.
Not to be true. Or like,
but of course. But that's not the point. Like,
yeah.
Half of our stories come from places where it's like somebody said this. Who knows? All right, and into the other big issue
this one's
of what
true.
happened this week.
I know this story is true. This
yes.
next one is true. Matt Damon, yes. And he was discussing Candelabra, and he said it is harder for actors to be...
No, the interviewer
I'm sorry, the interviewer said, is it harder for actors to be openly gay in Hollywood? I'm sure when Ben and I first came on the scene, he said, there were rumors that we were gay because it was two guys who wrote a script together. And the interviewer said, really? He said, I know. It's just like a piece of gossip, and it puts us in a weird position to have to answer, you know what I mean, which was then really deeply offensive. I don't want to... it's some sort of disease. I don't want to imply that it's some sort of disease. Then it's like throwing my friends under the bus, my gay friends under the bus, he's saying. But at that time, I remember thinking and saying Rupert Everett was openly gay, and this guy, more handsome than anybody, a classically trained dancer. It's tough to make the argument that he didn't take a hit for being out. He thinks that attitudes are changing and welcomes the introduction of same-sex marriage in California in 2008. He says, I think it must be really hard for actors to be out publicly. But in terms of actors, I think you are a better actor the less people know about you, period. And sexuality is a huge part of that. Whether you're straight or gay, people shouldn't know anything about your sexuality because that's one of the mysteries that you should be able to play. And people went crazy over this.
Yes, and people lost their minds on the internet immediately. And now here's one. I understand the reaction. I do think because it is ludicrous to say, like, people's sexuality should be a mystery. Well, in the exact same interview, and they talk about his wife and his kids. So because the predominant assumption is heterosexuality, it's only ever lesbian, gay, or bisexual people that can keep their sexuality a mystery because of the inherent societal presumption of heterosexuality. So I understand the objection on that point. What I sort of don't understand is the size of the vitriol of the reaction that was very like immediately like, fuck Matt Damon. Like he's saying everybody should stay in the closet. I get how you can like infer that from it, but people kept shortening these quotes down further because he started from talking about Behind the Candelabra. And what I've always appreciated about Matt Damon, and I guess part of it is the perspective you bring to what you assume about someone's motivation, because over the years he has not ever like blown up about the assumptions about him and Ben Affleck being gay together. And he has said this quote a number of times about saying, what do you do when you want to correct people's misassumption, but you don't want to imply that there's something negative about the opposite? Right. To me, that says someone who is thoughtful. Certainly, as a straight guy, it's easy for him to say, just don't talk about it. And I understand the implication of saying people don't stay in the closet, but everyone got all upset about the Rupert Everett example as well. Well,
Rupert Everett has said that himself.
And also in 1997, when Good Will Hunting was happening, that's the same year Ellen came out on Time Magazine as like the first, and then didn't get any acting jobs and rebranded herself as a TV host.
And her show got canceled.
Now, and I get people's frustration with the idea that, because some people were like, well, why doesn't he challenge the industry? And I don't think... yes, it's easy for him to say, well, like, it's easier to not talk about it, but he's also not wrong. There are still not enough openly gay actors succeeding in our industry over a long enough term to demonstrate to the casting directors and the producers and the studio executives to put giant dollars behind these people. We do not have $100 million movies, action heroes that are gay, $100 million romantic comedies that are a gay leading man. We have people like Zachary Quinto and Matt Bomer continuing, and Jonathan Groff stepping up and continuing to succeed that shows us it is possible. Right. But we are still newly into the territory of demonstrating to the people with the big bank accounts. It's kind of takes me back to the Roland Emmerich thing of like, the industry is still the problem. Matt Damon isn't the problem. Matt Damon talking about the reality of where we are is frustrating, and of course his suggestion is ludicrous, and that's certainly not what we want gay actors to be doing. But to crucify him for
he shouldn't have been. I mean, it goes back to what I've said many times. We have allies, and let's just say he did make a misstep, and. Probably did. He probably wishes he had that quote over again. I mean, we have his clarification on Ellen, and but why do we just throw out all of the good that he has done for our community, which he has done for many years, over this one quote? I get tired of that. And it's exhausting.
And that's back to what I was talking about earlier, this like all or nothing approach to everyone. And frankly, like that probably is how he feels, and probably is a straight guy that's super successful and has a wife and 4 kids, that he doesn't spend a ton of time thinking about LGBT representation in the film industry. He probably doesn't.
Right.
I do find him to be more thoughtful than some people, and he's willing to talk about issues that are complicated. But there's this modern cultural idea that like people are problematic, and if you say one problematic thing, you're done forever. it's like the Caitlyn Jenner marriage thing on Ellen. Funny enough that Ellen allowed Matt Damon to clarify himself, but it was the Caitlyn Jenner interview that gave everyone the opportunity to say, oh, I liked Caitlyn, but now I'm done with her. I'm like, at some point it becomes exhausting, and we just may have the kind of celebrities that don't ever weigh in on social issues, who don't use their platform. And I'm not saying you have to like what he said. I'm not saying you even have to agree with it, but to go all the way to like, I hate you and I'm done with you and I'll never see another movie of yours ever for like this one quote that sort of demonstrates white male heterosexual privilege, I just find
And he was horrified
exhausting.
by the response. I mean, shall we read did everybody see it or did we?
Well, he went on Ellen and talked about, like, just quickly that it was that he felt like it was a little bit out of context, and I do think people shortening the actual Guardian interview contributed to it being taken further out of context. I don't think it's great in the original. I don't. I do think there are problematic elements, to use the buzzword of the day, to it. But I think his greater issue about how he talked about not wanting to put down gay people, and I understand the assumption that people took from it, but like, I do think our particularly LGBT media sometimes is headed towards the most offensive clickbait headline, because the nature of modern media is you need people to click it and share it, and the worse you make a quote sound. And so many people don't read past the headlines, and then suddenly we're tweeting like, fuck Matt Damon forever. I'm like, okay, let's talk about how like he's wrong in what he said, and let's address like the complicated part of it, and let's say that's not right. And also, you may be suggesting this to closeted gay actors, and they could and have a complicated, nuanced conversation with him about it, rather than just being like, done with you forever.
And let's look at the body of work. Let's look at all the quotes that he said over the years and the support that he's given to our community when a lot of people weren't.
I'm not saying that excuses it, but I do think that's when.
Nor am I.
But I do think that's when you say, hey, that was kind of gross. You implied that like gay people should stay in the closet, so that he could go like, I'm thinking deeper about it, and I get how that was what it was interpreted, and it's not really like, have the complicated conversation. Really quickly, I do want to talk about this because it was an interesting learning. Last week was Bi Week, and I talked about that. Last Wednesday night after the radio show, I went to a bisexual awareness event at the LA Gay and Lesbian Center, put on by the LA Bi Task Force, and it was the first bisexual specific event I have ever been to. Go ahead. Dell's got a joke.
I was so scared to say this, but I said, was there just a roar of laughter when you walked in?
Yes, that anyone would think that it was at all possible.
And I thought, is that offensive? No, Emerson's very, very gay and publicly gay. It's not offensive.
But it was really interesting to be there and listen to a panel full of bisexual people talk about it. It was the first bisexual specific event I'd ever been to. Over 200 people there. And when they asked the audience, who were predominantly bisexual people celebrating their community there, how many of them it was their first event, like I would say 75% of the audience raised their hands. And so when you talk about bisexual visibility and continuing to be aware that it's a specific identity that often gets dismissed, and they're actually the largest percentage of our community, but only 12% of bisexual males feel comfortable telling that to even their close friends and family, that there's a lot of work to do there. And I wanted to celebrate being there and thank the LA Bi Task Force for it. And finally, no, let's all the way to the end. Let's check in with Crazy.
All right, we have been following this man for so long. This hateful pastor, James David Manning, and there was a candlelight vigil at the Harlem Against Violence, Homophobia, and Transphobia, chanting "Stop the Hate Now." You can go to, I think we have the link for the YouTube, outside of his. It's ATLAH World Missionary Church. Do they call it ATLA?
I don't know. He's that one with the Starbucks semen coffee guy.
Yes, he's the one.
Do you remember?
He's had a lot of billboards not billboards, but church signs that we. So here's what he stepped out and he said, "What hate are you talking about? Are you talking about your own self-hatred? It appears to me that you're the haters. You are the haters. You hate yourselves. Anybody who loves another man's rectum is a hater. You're Jesus haters. You are racist as well. Come on, you faggots. All you lesbos, all you perverted people, all you dung eaters, come over here. Do you think your chants are going to stop me? You can no more stop me than you can stop the power of the blood of Jesus. I declare the blood of Jesus against you faggots, you lesbos, you perverts, you sick-minded people. You are sick. You are demon-possessed. Stop the demons now. Stop the demons now. You are the devil's children. You are perverts. You are a disgrace. God help you. You are a wretched, unbelievable, despicable disgrace to humanity. Your breath stinks of another man's butthole. He is obsessed. He is obsessed with anal sex.
He really, really is seriously thought a lot about this. You know what I find interesting? That he uses lesbos. Like, that's such an odd, like, middle schooler word, I feel like, lesbos. Like, you faggot. I mean, you usually say faggots and dykes if you're going to, like, insult, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it's like...
It's not as insulting.
It's like it's like he's missing one.
You know what?
Bad.
It's just so stupid, and so it's humorous.
Y'all, check out the video online, though, because it's hysterical, because there's this huge group of people
justice.
just ignoring him, and he's standing up on the front porch of the church behind a fence, just sort of yelling at them, being ignored by everyone else. Like, he should have done this in one of his little internet sermon videos. It wouldn't have been as obvious that no one cared what he thought.
But
right?
There you go. Well, we got off, and we didn't get off.
No,
but
but
we
those
got
are
off.
real good things.
We got off course a little bit, and there were lots more. But a lot of these things we can carry over to next week.
But also those are my favorite. Honestly, these are my favorite. You know, the fun stories we do in between are just to amuse you guys. But you know, Stonewall and the nature of LGBT representation in art is an important issue that people are passionate about, and I think that's important to talk about. And I also think how we respond as a community to people that say negative things, but it's like you know, let's not react to everyone everywhere all the time as though they're the Westboro Baptist Church. Let's find some in our outrage. Let's find the ability to say, hey, that's not cool sometimes, instead of like, let's set you on fire. I just feel like some reasonable conversation and meeting people in the middle rather than screaming at each other instantly in all capital letters benefits us. I think it benefits progress. I think we are able to get to understanding better by starting, going through the anger scale from 1, 2, 3, 4, rather than jumping to 10 or 47 immediately. I think that's more productive to the dialogue that we want to be happening both within our community. A little more
respect, right?
Yes, and outside of our community as well. So just food for thought. But as always, you don't have to agree with us. You can tell us what you thought about the show and your opinions on these issues. Del Shores on Facebook at facebook.com/Del Shores Fan Club. Mine is Emerson Collins Official. Of course, you can always hate tweet me at actually Emerson and at Del Shores. And thanks so much for listening. And we appreciate so many of you that shared thoughts about publicity for the show. We're going to be working on trying on some new things with that.
And I think that we can all listen to Mr. Pintauro and take care of each other, love each other a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
See you next week.
All right, bye.